Welcome back to my kitchen for another Sunday Fun Day where we are going to be focusing on the dogs today. I have a whole lot of chicken backs that I got in last month's Azure standard order that I have defrosted and need to process. So we're going to be making some bone broth. Not all of it is going to be for the dogs, but the first batch that I'm going to make today is, and it's just going to be the chicken carcasses and the apple cider vinegar. And then I'm also going to be making some dog food for them. So I've got a lot of chicken here I need to sort through and get started. So let's get to it. I am hoping that these are defrosted enough. I've had them in the refrigerator now for a couple days because they were just a solid mess. 40 pounds of organic air-chilled chicken backs. Brand is Mary's. And we have gone through a lot of my pantry stock of broths in the last handful of months. And so we're going to be making some more. So these are just the chicken backs. They've got little bits of meat on them, the skin on them. I will be skimming the fat off of this before I freeze dry it or can it for the dogs. And then the second batch I'm going to be doing will be definitely designated for people, and I'll have some aromatics in there, onions, celery, carrots, things like that. But since onions will kill dogs, I want to make a batch that they can have to accompany their homemade dog food. And also because, you know, Charlie, they're all getting old. Charlie's now 11, or is he turning 12? I think he's turning 12. Molly just turned then 11. I mean, they're getting old and they can be finicky with their food now, on and off. We're getting into some frozen ones down here. So having some bone broth on hand helps increase their appetite and also provides them with a whole lot more good stuff in their diet with all of the collagen and calcium and other things that you're going to get from bone broth. Oh, this looks like a good amount. I think that's probably a third of it. Maybe I'll put a little more in there because I still have in my freezer to make with the people bone broth. I still have the chicken necks that I bought too. I portioned those out to give some to the dogs and to save some for a canning project. Oh, this one has actually, that is actually a whole leg on there still. All right, I think that is a good amount for the dog. So this is pretty full. So all I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna fill this with water and then we'll pour in some apple cider vinegar and get this going once I get my hands cleaned. That is a full roaster oven, 22 quarts. All right, I'm going to go ahead and turn this on, and we're going to do it kind of low. So I think I'm going to turn it to about 200, and this is going to go for 24 up to 48 hours. I'll just see how it's looking and how it's going. So it's not going to be ready before I put this video up, but I am going to put the apple cider vinegar in here. Once it's done, I will strain it. I will toss the bones. I will give the dogs any of the meat and cartilage and things like that that come off the bones. And then I'll refrigerate it so I can scoop off the fat cap that rises and solidifies on the top so that the broth itself will be low fat for them. I'm not adding any salt, no additives. This is just plain old bone broth. So let's add the vinegar. We're just gonna do a good pour of that. this is going to help break down the bones a little bit, help get, just draw all the nutrients out of the bones, the marrow, all the calcium, collagen development, all of that. This is the magic that makes that happen. So don't forget your apple cider vinegar. We're going to start with sauteing some mushrooms. This is 32 ounces of mushrooms. It's a mix. I've got the just the large white button. I've got some oyster, and I've got some baby shiitake mushrooms in here as well. Mushrooms are so incredibly healthy for you and for your dogs. They have compounds in them that are really, really good for brain health, and they can absolutely help your dogs as they're aging, which mine are, although it makes a bigger impact on them if you start when they're younger. But my dogs have been having mushrooms for a long time. I've been making dog food since 2000, March of 2000 to be exact. So we're gonna get these sauteed down. Now, the recipe that I'm using here, let me find mushrooms. We need 4 ounces, and you need to cook them in a fat in order to make all the compounds bioavailable to them. So I'm going to do all of these, but I'm going to portion it out. So however much I get at the end, I will divide that. So we need 4 ounces. We have 32. So that means this is going to get me 8 batches of dog food, unless I want to steal some from the freezer once they're sauteed for some people food. So let me get these cut up, and then we're going to get them in the pan. Now, the oyster and the baby shiitakes, they don't necessarily need to be chopped. My dogs like mushrooms, but I can run my knife through them really quick anyway. So a lot of what I'm going to be doing today is cooking some things separately, because I'm going to do more than is required for one batch of dog food. And that way I don't have to do this prep often. That's the way I like to do it. For instance, today we're going to be adding some gently cooked beef liver that I had done, I think, 3 weeks ago. I still have enough for 2 more batches, so I don't need to cut and gently cook beef liver again today. It just makes it nice. So if I can do a big batch like today, it just saves on time over, the next month or so. All right, those are chopped just fine. And these are going to cook in a couple batches because I'm going to be just using a regular skillet here. I know when I first got Sky, all my dogs are rescues, and when we first got Sky, she would not touch a vegetable at all. She had a big aversion to them. She didn't understand why the other dogs were eating vegetables, but she's getting better about it. She now eats most of what she's given, especially if it's cooked in her food. But like my other dogs, they'll eat raw carrots, potatoes, sweet potatoes, anything that falls on the floor that's a vegetable, they'll gobble down. Anything that they're given as a treat as a vegetable, they'll gobble down. She'll do it if they're cooked, most of the time. And these were washed with just, rubbing a wet paper towel over the top of them. They're not perfect, but I don't like to get mushrooms wet before sauteing them. So that is how I do it. Today's actually the 4th, so it's the 4th of July, and it is a gorgeous day outside, and I have been inside all day. I have been trying so hard to work on my website so I can get that done today, because I think I said last week that my goal was to have it published today. Not sure if I'll get there. I mean, I should just go ahead and publish, because I can always make changes to it after. So I'd be interested to know what you guys think about it. I've never designed a website before. This has proven to be pretty laborsome, tedious, frustrating. There's been a huge learning curve. And so anyway, I'm doing the best I can. I'm not going to pretend that it is an amazing website, but it is a place where I can put things like my recipes. I just did for today's Freeze Dry Friday video, the herb video, I did a Freeze Dry Friday guide to herbs, or a freeze drying guide to herbs. And so that's up there, but you guys don't have access to that yet. I've also got freeze dryer batch log sheets up there that have the formula that I mentioned a week or two ago on how to calculate rehydration per serving, as long as you do the upfront math with your trays on the moisture loss or the water loss. So I think there's some pretty cool stuff up there. And as I'm doing it, I'm thinking of all these other things that I can put up there as well. I just have to get it published. I have to make that jump, but I just keep thinking, oh, I can make this better. Or, oh, let me make this really quick and add this. And I probably should stop doing that so I can just get it published. So abchomestead.com. Love to know what you guys think. And if you have any suggestions, because I'm so new to this. I'm so awkward when it comes to like the social media stuff and like SEO, keywords, all that stuff. I didn't grow up with that. So I'm not very good at it. And I know there are people my age who are, but I don't know anybody who is. So I don't really have anybody to lean on. So any suggestions you have, I am all ears. Would love feedback. And I guess that means that I definitely have to publish because I just told you guys to go to the website. So I'm going to try to do it tonight. I think I just have to hit the publish button and magic will happen. If I run into any snafus, then it may not be up until maybe Sunday. Okay, this is a lot of mushrooms. I am really excited because mushrooms are an amazing food that you can give your dogs for overall health. Let's get these sauteed. I'm going to go in with about a tablespoon of some virgin coconut oil. Coconut oil is a healthy oil that your dogs can have. And I'm going to start with these mushrooms so that this bowl becomes available. So as soon as that melts down just a little bit, I'll pour these in. We're not going to cook them too high. It's going to be more of a gentle cook. And I'm going to be adding some herbs to them as well. So I think we're going to do some oregano, some parsley, maybe some thyme. I think those sound really good for using with sauteed mushrooms. And now these can go in. And I'm going to add a little bit of thyme. This is freeze-dried thyme. All these herbs are freeze-dried and homegrown. A little parsley, although I don't have much in there. I definitely need to be harvesting some parsley here soon. It's not ready yet, though. We're just going to get a little of that in there. Oregano, we just processed more of, so we can be a little more generous with that. I'm just going to smush it up into smaller pieces. Now, come on, does that not look super tasty? Even though it's going to be dog food. Oh my goodness, those look so good. And they are cooking up quick. I'm going to turn that heat down just a little bit more even. So one of the reasons that I'm changing the food that I'm making for my dogs is because at Molly's last visit, and she's getting up there in age now, she had gained 10 pounds in the last year, which is insane. Now, part of that is because of the medication that she's on. She's always hungry. I think it messes with her metabolism a bit as well. So the vet recommended that we cut out the grain that I was putting in the dog food. So I was doing either rice or millet or barley or something like that. And they suggested, or she suggested, just eliminating it altogether because dogs that are 10 pounds overweight on average live 2 years less than their counterparts. And so I want to make sure that, Molly has as good and long of life as possible, especially after everything that she's been through. I mean, she was on death's doorstep a year and a half ago. She had pancreatitis, leading into that January. Pancreatitis 6 times throughout the year. And then in trying to figure out why, and why some of her symptoms didn't fit just pancreatitis, we did so much lab work and sent it all across the country to different labs and found out that she has hypoparathyroidism. So that was killing her at the same time. And anyway, and she's also a epileptic dog. So she's on seizure medications. And so she has a lot going on, and she's fought really, really hard to be here. And I don't want her weight to be what takes her out. So we have been doing now for the past month, we've been doing grain-free diets for the dogs. And I gotta say that they're not fully embracing it yet. This recipe they do seem to like. So I'm playing around with different recipes, which you should do anyway, right? If you're feeding your dog homemade dog food, especially if you're only feeding them homemade food, then you should be switching up your ingredients anyway, just so that they get a different mix of the micronutrients and minerals that they need by changing the food, even the protein sources. But we'll see how they feel about tonight's dinner. Last week I added just a little bit too much turmeric, I think, and like Charlie wouldn't eat it, but the other two did. So it's been a little bit of a learning curve trying to figure out the no starchy carb, no grain meals for them. But we're diligently working on it. Okay, so I just went in with a little bit more of that coconut oil. Now remember, this is not one meal. This is not even a week's worth. This is gonna get portioned out to 2 months worth of mushrooms for them. So I'm not worried about how much coconut oil I put in there. And we're gonna get that moistened with that coconut oil, which that just sucked it right up and there's nothing left now. We'll see how they do. They do need oil. I think I mentioned that. You need to cook your mushrooms in oil in order to release all of their properties. A little oregano. Little thyme. And a little parsley. And by just gently cooking these, we're maintaining the nutritional integrity of the herbs as well. So once these are done and cool down, I'll weigh them and then I'll portion them out into 8 bags. Well, 7 bags and then 1 for this week's meal. I like to keep 5 to 6 days worth of dog food in the refrigerator, and then I'll pop out the next batch of ingredients, and then I just pretty much just have to cook up the protein, and that makes it really easy. I'm also not using my Instant Pot anymore to cook the protein because I think just gentler cooking of the food is probably better for them. Even though I didn't waste or throw away the broth in the Instant Pot, I would always use that to cook the grain in. But since we're not doing grain and it's not too hard to simmer some protein on the stove, that's the way we're gonna do it for at least a while. We'll see. These smell so, so good. I mean, I think they would smell better if they had butter and salt, maybe a little balsamic vinegar on them, none of which we can add to the dog food. Well, salt we could, but we shouldn't need to. One of the dogs will get that for sure. I think I'm gonna add just a tiny bit of water in here so I don't have to add any more oil to get these to soften up. Just a little splash. Barely enough to cover the bottom of the pot, but that is just gonna help get these cooked through before they dry out. Now I like leaving the pieces bigger because my dogs like, you know, the feel of the food in their mouth versus like a, you know, a pureed dog food. But you can certainly put these through a food processor to make smaller pieces if you need to hide them or your dogs don't like big chunks of food, but mine do. And all of this food is going to be kind of cooked twice because not the one I'm going to pull out for tonight's dinner, but this is going to go into the freezer and then it's going to have to be defrosted and then it's going to have to be warmed up. So the warm up process is going to cook them a little bit more. So just keep that in mind. You can see the mushrooms have released some water on their own now, which is good. So they're almost ready. I'm going to go ahead and pull those out. Try to leave the juice in the pan for the next batch. Third and final batch, we need a little coconut oil, about a tablespoon. I'm going to let that melt. And then we can add the last of the mushrooms here. We'll add some more herbs, and then I'll let these cook, and then we'll move on to the next step. These have already soaked up all the juice that was on the bottom of this pan and the oil. So I'm going to add just a little bit more water to these as well in just a minute. Cannot express to you how amazing these freeze-dried herbs smell in here. It's incredible. All right, those are coming along nicely. Let's prep for the next step. As soon as these mushrooms are ready to come out, I'm going to do some salmon. Now, this is about 2 pounds of salmon. I have 2 packages here. And I'm going to cook this separate because I don't want to overcook this because that would destroy the beautiful omegas in there. And I don't want to heat it up with the food that I defrost and heat, or daily, right? Because it comes out of the fridge, it's cold. My dogs are used to having warm food. What are you doing, Sky? So I am going to cook this separate, and then we need 1 pound per batch of food. So this will just end up being for another week. I'll just put it in the freezer and then, but I'm going to portion it into daily amounts. So in the evening, I can take out the next day's, put it in the refrigerator. It'll be good to go. And I don't have to cook it. I don't have to heat that up. I can just mix that in with the food that is being heated up. So it won't get overcooked. It's not going to lose any of the essential nutrients and phytonutrients that are in there and the omegas. I just made a mess. All right, so my flame is pretty low and I'm gonna leave it low and we're just gonna go in with the salmon. Now, these are, what do they call them? Salmon trim for stock. So it's farm-raised product of Canada, Norway. So this is not expensive. This is only $2.99 a pound, which is very economical and a good way to get the salmon into your dog's diet. And my dogs absolutely love this stuff. Didn't even know that it was sold this way until recently when I was poking around at the seafood options. I tried oysters. I bought oysters and tried to give them to the dogs. They would not, for anything, touch them. They wanted absolutely nothing to do with oysters. They do like sardines, and I've shared buying a big box of them from Azure Standard. I still have some left. I think I bought a second box, and they love them. But again, we have to change up their nutrients sometimes, change up their ingredients sometimes so they get a wider range of nutrients. And this might still have some tiny bones in it. The other few packages that I've cooked up over the last month has had a few tiny bones in them. If I see them, I'll pull them out, but I'm not too worried about it. These bones are so small, and my dogs do get raw, meaty bones once a week. They know how to deal with bones. And I always am here in the kitchen with them while they're eating, so if there ever was a problem, I could help them. All right, so we need some cruciferous vegetables for the vitamins, the minerals, and especially for the fiber. So I want about 8 ounces of that, and I didn't have quite enough broccoli, so I did what I could, and then I'm substituting with some collard greens. Now, these are freeze-dried, and so I'm not gonna measure out 8 ounces of freeze-dried because that would be way too much when it's rehydrated. So I'm going with 1.4 ounces total of the freeze-dried weight. And we're gonna just get some water on them and allow them to start to rehydrate. So we're just gonna let those soak for a few minutes. Now, I can't tell you for sure how much all of this is going to yield because I change up the ingredients a little bit every day or every week. Then I can't say for sure. I'll tell you exactly how much salmon I'm going to be giving them per day once I know how many cups everything yielded. This looks fantastic. We're going to get this out and let this get cooled down as well. And I think for our next step, we'll start the ground beef. That's going to take a while because I'm going to do 6 pounds of beef. I'm doing 6 because that's how much is in the package. So everything in this recipe has been adjusted to account for 6 pounds of 90-10 ground beef. And that yielded a ton of salmon. We're gonna let this cool off with the mushrooms. And now for 6 pounds of ground beef. Again, this is 90-10. We're gonna go low and slow. There is gonna be some fat buildup in there. If it's excessive, I will remove some. Especially because Molly has a history of pancreatitis, and because we did add the coconut oil as the source of good fat. Probably gonna have to do this in a couple batches, or I can grab my second skillet. I think I'll grab my second skillet. All right, broke out the cast iron, so I'm gonna get this into that pan, and we're just gonna let everything start to cook. With beef in both the pans, I'm just gonna start breaking this down with my little meat masher here. And what we're cooking in the pans is 1 batch of food. So I'm not saying that this is for a full week. I don't know that until the end, and I measure out the cups versus the calories and all of that. But this is 1 batch, whereas the mushrooms and the fish is for 2 separate batches, and the mushrooms are for 8 separate batches. But this in the pans now is for 1 batch. They'll all be married together in a big container, measured out, and then I'll portion them and put anything beyond 5 days into the freezer. To this, I'm gonna be adding 1 pound of pureed pumpkin. These are about 8 ounces each. This is pumpkin from last year's garden that was roasted and then frozen. So that comes in super handy. I don't have to do anything else about that. And then I'm going to be adding 9 eggs with their shells. The shells are their calcium in this batch of food. We're also going to be processing a bunch of berries that we can portion out for the different batches. And we're going to also be adding the sunflower seeds and the gently cooked liver. But again, that's already cooked. This is already cooked as well. So I'm not going to cook it in the pan. I'm just going to put it in the bowl when everything goes in there. Same with the pre-cooked liver. This is beef liver and this is 8 ounces. So I packaged them up in 4-ounce servings. Liver is not my favorite thing to process for dogs. So I like to just get it over with, do it all at once, and then I'm done and I can just pull it out like this. 9 eggs total. So I'm just gonna start cracking them in, setting aside the eggshells for a minute. And we're gonna get this stirred in, or stirred around, I should say. Just get the egg yolks broken up a bit. And then we're gonna mix it well through. Now I did wash these really well. I just do them in my hand really quick. It doesn't hurt my fingers. And I just get them into the smallest of pieces as I can. And I don't have to worry about evening them out because, again, this is all going to get married into one big bowl for portioning, well, for measuring and then for portioning. And then that's the bowl I keep the food in my refrigerator too. It takes up a good chunk of refrigerator space. Get that nicely stirred around. You can see we've still got some pink on the meat in here, which is good. We also have a big mess on the stove to clean up. Broccoli and collard greens. I'm just going to add those in here if they'll fit since this pan is still on. These were blanched before they were processed, so they've already been slightly cooked. I'm just going to get them kind of mushed in here, mixed well. We're going to cut this into smaller pieces. Okay, that looks good. Now I can turn the heat off. Final steps, we're almost there. I've got my raw sunflower seeds here, 6.4 ounces, and grinding them down is just gonna help them actually use the nutrition that's in them because otherwise they'll just pass them through their digestive tract. Get those mixed in. We're just gonna heat that through for a couple minutes and then we should be done cooking. So in here I've got washed blueberries, raspberries, and blackberries. I like to do a mix of berries because different berries bring different benefits. A lot of different antioxidants, really good stuff for people and for pets. So that's going to make plenty of delicious batches, but this can also be pulled out of the freezer and mixed into some yogurt or pancake mix or whatever. Just adding a lot of incredible nutrition and cancer-fighting properties and you name it to your dog food. We'll just let that heat for just a second and I'll finish processing and batching these up later. These are going to go in. Both of these pumpkin purees are going to go into this week's batch food, as well as the 8 ounces of liver. One for this week's and one for the freezer for another future batch. And let's weigh this. That is exactly 2 pounds. So let's get some mushrooms in there and then a little bit of liquid. All right, so this is enough for this week's batch. And now we get to marry everything together and measure it for volume so we know how many calories per cup, so we know how many cups to feed. I have a 1 cup and a 4 cup measurer here. So we're going to start with the 1 on these mushrooms. And then we can toss in some of that liver until we get to a cup. One cup of food, 2 cups, 6 cups, 10, 14, 18, 22, 24. These are each 1 cup. So that's going to be 26 cups of food. I just need to see the volume of this. That's 1 cup. Two cups. 2.5 cups. Let's get this all mixed together. All right, now this is pretty much ready to serve. I could add some additional things in here. I could put in some more herbs if I wanted to. I could put in some nutritional yeast, sprinkle in some turmeric, which I will do, with a little bit of black pepper, because the two need to be served together in order for any body to be able to absorb the nutrients or use the nutrients found in turmeric. So let me do a sprinkle of that with a little bit of pepper. So just a tiny bit of pepper. Doesn't have to be a lot, and a little bit of turmeric. Last week I put in a lot and Charlie was not a fan. Mix that back through and dinner is ready. Now Charlie really does like nutritional yeast. Molly doesn't care for it. So with the nutritional yeast, I just use that as a sprinkle on top of their food. It does bring some nice benefits to them, but most of the time dogs really like the taste of it. So I'm happy to serve it if Charlie's being finicky, or if he wants any, but Molly doesn't usually want it. Now with this, first I have to do my math and figure out exactly how many servings we're gonna get out of this, and then I'll know how many containers to put this and this in, because it will be a daily container, morning and night. So that's a half serving twice a day. But I still have to figure that out, because I never know exactly what the yield is going to be until I am done cooking. If it is a recipe where I'm using new or different ingredients, and this time it was, because I didn't have a big bunch of kale to use. I substituted with some broccoli and some collards that were freeze dried. I also used 6 pounds of ground beef instead of the 5 that I would typically use, because that's how much the package weighed. So it's always going to be a little bit different. And so you're going to have to calculate your servings, but they are really looking forward to eating. So let's get them served up. All right, I did the calculations. So this recipe has 7,936 calories in it, or about 278.5 calories per cup. So Molly would get 1 cup per day, Charlie would get 1 cup per day, and Sky would get about 3 cups per day. So this is going to last me about 5.5 days. We'll count tonight's dinner as the half. And so this will be an additional 5 days. So everything can stay in this container and just go into the fridge once it's fully cooled down. For the fish, I'm going to just divide this up into 5 additional servings for the rest of the 5 days. And so we're just gonna do that evenly. It'll work out fine altogether. And that way I can just pull out one of these cups per day and divide it amongst their 2 meals a day. We'll leave a little bit in there for tonight's dinner. So I will keep one of these in the refrigerator, and the rest will go in the freezer, and I'll just pull it out the night before, like when I feed them dinner tomorrow night. I will pull out a new one and put it in the fridge to defrost. I went ahead and zipped through the rest of those berries, and I gave this a little taste. This is phenomenal. This would be so good in homemade oatmeal, homemade granola bars, homemade oatmeal, in muffins. I mean, this is so tasty like this. And what I have decided to do with this is to freeze dry it. I think that's going to be the easiest way for me to store it, and just reconstitute it right before I put it in with the dog food. And so that leaves our mushrooms. I don't want to use like a million bags. This is a lot of mushrooms. So I'm going to give this a try. It might be a flop, especially because there's moisture in here, but we're going to try. I want to get some of the juice too. All right, that is 4 ounces. Let's see if I can get this folded without it spilling everywhere because of the juice. We did it. I don't know if it'll stay this way when I flip it over to put it in the bag. Seems to be working. Yay. Okay. I'm a lot more comfortable with that than just going through so many plastic bags that have to go into the landfill. And I think we're done. I have to get the berries onto a freeze dryer tray and stick them in the freezer. And I've got some bowls and stuff to clean, but other than that, we are good. Now we can feed the dogs. And we feel very accomplished because we got a lot of, well, first of all, we got another 5.5 days worth of dog food made for the dogs, but we also have a whole lot of ingredients prepped for future batches. Do you approve? Good boy. Thank you so much for joining me for another edition of Sunday Fun Day, where I showed how to make a brand new, grain-free, DIY, healthy, nutritious dog food. My name is Kelly, you're at A Better Choice Homestead, and I do hope you come back and visit again soon.